Hello, my name is Stephen Schaub, and I'm the leader of the Digital Revolution 2.0 here on YouTube. And today we're going to talk about becoming a human rangefinder. A human rangefinder not only for the ability of being able to pre-focus and predict distances, but also using your own body and your own body measurements on a myriad of different cameras to get you better focus and to get you start thinking about distance, but in a very intuitive way. So let's break it down and let's get started. Okay, now before I get into the specifics on how to become a human rangefinder, I wanted to talk about one thing first. There were two videos that I did a few days ago that are sort of part of this trilogy. The first one was on visualization techniques part 1, where I talked about using visualization cards and aids and helping you begin to see the four walls of the photographic frame for your particular aspect ratio, and also to allow you to take thousands upon thousands of mental photographs constantly. Really important that you watch that video. The other video talked about the handy Andy pocket exposure calculator. I will put a link to both of these videos in the description, but learning to see the light, learning to realize that you don't need your light meter, that your mind and your eyes are really the perfect light meter. The more you begin to trust what you know through your experience, the better you will be as a photographer. Now let's get into how to become a human rangefinder. So the first thing you need to do is get yourself a 25-foot tape measure. I've tried this with laser pointers and all that kind of stuff. Tape measure is just easier. And what you're gonna do is you're going to obsessively, for at least 2 weeks, measure distances everywhere. First you're gonna guesstimate, and then you're gonna measure. And what'll happen is you will very quickly be able to judge distances very accurately. I can look at my tripod in front of me right now, and I'm gonna bet it's about 30 inches away. Yep, 30 inches on the nose. I can look at the wall across the room, it's 11 feet. I can look at the wall down there, it's 16 feet. I know this because I have spent years training myself to be able to judge these distances. So Steve, why is this important? It's important because it gives you the ability to pre-focus accurately, which I'll get into in a minute, and on cameras that are scale focus cameras to be able to measure distances without having to use things like a tape measure or a laser pointer or an auxiliary viewfinder. It just opens your creative control over your process. Another thing you can do is you can measure your body parts. I know that if I stick my hand straight out with my fingertips and I can just touch you, you are 3 feet away. I've measured it out, it's exactly what it is. So why is that important? On most of my cameras, the minimum focusing distance is 1 meter. So if I can touch you, I can hit you with my minimum focus. I know this distance. You'll find that the hardest distances to really be accurate are the close ones. Further distance ones don't matter as much because when you're closer to a subject, you have shallower depth of field. So it's really, really important to focus on the distances like 3 feet to maybe 12 feet. Those are the most critical distances to know. But it's important to know the other ones as well. Just know that the closer ones are going to take more work. So let's talk about this for a minute. This is my Leica M3. It's got a 50mm f2 collapsible sumo crown lens on it. And I use this camera primarily for street shooting. And I know me, with this particular camera lens combination, I generally speaking have a lens to subject distance between 6 feet and 10 feet, maybe 11 feet, 6 to 11 feet. That's pretty much the distance that I almost always photograph my subject in. How do I know that? Well, I've gone in and looked at volumes upon volumes upon volumes of images that I've made, and that is probably the 90% sweet spot for me with this camera lens combination. So I need to be able to visualize that distance because I like to pre-focus a camera. You know, if I can stick the camera to my eye and I can focus it on you perfect, great. But you know, a lot of times I'm into the energy of a photograph. I'm into that moment of excitement. I'm not interested into an image that's razor sharp but has no life. I want that life, I want that energy. So I need to be able to shoot quick when I'm on the road. So I pre-focus an awful lot. So on this camera, knowing that my range is between 6 feet and say 11 feet, if I go to the scale focus here on the camera and I set it to 8 feet and I shoot it at f11, everything from 5.5 feet to 12 feet will be covered by depth of field and I'm fine. So I can walk around and just shoot. I'm not having to spend all that time poking around trying to find that perfect point of focus. Now, yes, I'm having to shoot it at f11 to have that depth of field, but that's fine. For the type of street work that I'm doing, that's what I want. If I want to shoot something at f2 and I want a super shallow depth of field, sure, then I'm going to have to focus through because you need that depth of field to cover this. But having that ability to just set my camera, walk and shoot is huge, and it's very liberating, and it allows me to engage. But in order to have that type of mental ability, I need to know distances. I mean, sometimes I'll be walking down the street and I'll see something coming at me. And I can say, okay, they're almost into my distance that I have, and click. Or I want to shoot them further away. That guy's 20 feet. I can quickly put 20 and shoot. The moment you put a camera to your eye, it's kind of strange, especially a small camera like this. If people notice you doing that, they sort of tense up. So I'm always trying to do everything, down at my waist, setting the focus there, and then just pointing really fast and shoot, if I'm trying to capture that sort of spontaneous moment. When I'm working with other cameras, like this one, this is a Linhof 6x17. It has a 180 millimeter lens. I shoot this with either a 72 and 90 or the 180. It's a great camera. And once again, I scale focus and guess the distances all the time with this camera, and I'm right 99% of the time. It's shocking how accurate you can become. But I do have an auxiliary viewfinder on this camera. So back in the 50s and 60s, there were a lot of companies who were making these cold shoe auxiliary viewfinders. And what's great about it is it's just like working with a Leica. You've got a window, you look through it, you turn the dial until the split image comes into focus, it gives you a distance. I put the distance on the lens and I can shoot. It's absolutely razor sharp, perfect every single time. Now, there is a modern version of an auxiliary viewfinder made by a company called Photoman out of China. I own both. It's actually quite good. I prefer the Voigtlander, but if you're looking for something like this, if you're shooting like a Hasselblad 903, or any camera really that doesn't have a rangefinder in it, auxiliary rangefinders are really nice. They're a few $100, but they're absolutely worth every penny. But once again, I only use this when I need critical focus, where maybe I'm gonna shoot this lens at f8, which has a very shallow depth of field, and I need to be precise. If I'm shooting at 16 or 22, I can guess the distance close enough because of, once again, calibrating my eye. Another camera I use this technique with is a Photoman 6x24. I mean, this is like ridiculously huge negative. It's got a 90 millimeter Schneider XL lens on it. I hand hold this camera as well. I walk around with this camera all day. And I do have an auxiliary viewfinder that can go in this cold shoe, but I almost never, ever, ever, ever use it. With this camera, I can scale focus so easily on the helical focusing mount here, using the techniques that I've been outlining, and it's perfect every single time. Another camera techniques like this are helpful for is Lomo sells a whole bunch of their cameras that have, this is an LCA 120. I actually kind of like this camera. The 38 millimeter lens is kind of fun. The advance lever is absolute crap though, just absolute crap. It just feels like it's gonna break constantly, and it has broken a few times. But I love the lens. But on their cameras, so many of them have distance scales like this. So this has got infinity, 2.5 meters, 1 meter, 0.6 meters. So in order to know what 2.5 meters is, I need to be able to see that distance. More often than not, people miss photographs at these type of cameras, but because they can't judge that distance. They're making poor decisions as to how far something really is. So once again, take some time here and work on these 3 sets of skills. Each and every one of you, if you've watched these 3 videos, should be carrying 3 things with you for the next 2 weeks. A visualization aid, a handy pocket calculator, and a 25-foot tape measure. It will make you a better photographer. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day. Now go shoot some film.